Welcome back, folks, for another round of Comic Corner. And today we've got 4 books today, so we're almost back. Actually, that pretty much is our max. Anything more than that, I might lose my mind. But there was some great gems here. One was a bit lackluster, but that's because, well, yeah, it's Tom Taylor. So anyway, our first story is, let's just get out of the way, Nightwing issue number 97. So this takes place relatively pretty much shortly after the events of issue 96. Blockbuster's been defeated. He's been had his heart removed, and now we see Boss Maroney, or Mr. Maroney as everyone else calls him, and Boss Maroney's like, hey, who's gonna fill this up? Like, who's gonna fill my drink up? Like, he's pointing out, hey, I got half these guys on my payroll. It's fine. I'll be out of here, easy peasy. I work for Mr. Blockbuster. All right, Blockbuster's my guy. And Sawyer's like, oh well, I hate to tell you this, but he did. Of course, Nightwing is finally finding out about Heartless. It's been a whole ass arc, and Heartless still been doing whatever he wants. So he would talk about, hey, this isn't what I wanted. This is how I wanted Blockbuster to be. He wanted Blockbuster to be defeated within the system. That everything goes just right. He is then publicly revealed to be defeated by the justice system. All right, it all works out. It sends a great message to crime. But here, just him being killed, it doesn't. It's not justice. And now, in the same way there's a heart in Heartless, or the same way there's a hole in Heartless, there's now a hole in the power structure of Bloodhaven that can just be filled. All right, and it wasn't the good guys that did it. It was presumably a rival competitor. Meanwhile, Boss Maroney's like, okay, so yeah, he's dead. That doesn't mean anything. Well, it turns out Blockbuster was not an idiot, and everything he's ever had Maroney do, he's put pretty much like a little scrapbook together. Like, this is how Maroney did this, and how he did, and who he did it to, and blah blah blah. All of it goes to him. So it's like, okay, look, here's what happens. All right, you just you prepare to testify, and we'll keep you safe before any of those crime families find out about what you did. And this is where it sort of falls apart and gets stupid. Their plan is to take him to Gotham City to keep him safe. And my question is, who thought this was the best place? I mean, it is weird that you would think that the best place to keep someone safe from crime is Gotham City. Like, I love Gotham to death. I love the Batman universe. But no, if I'm hiding from criminals, Gotham City is the last place I go. I wouldn't even go to Metropolis. No. I would just, like, the most common sense thing is to legit hide him out at the Hall of Justice, all right? Or the Titan's Tower, or any of those places. But anyway, that's what she wants. That's what Renee Montoya agrees to do. Now I'm just, that's what's going to happen. Barbara's like, okay, that's fine. We're going to also oversee it. And Babs wants she wants to take a vacation. There's like a couple of days off. And Dick Grayson points out, well, there's a heart-stealing parasite out there. She's like, well, there's a guy that stole my heart right here. And it's cringy. It's adorable cringy. But, yeah, okay. Anyway, as you do, as we all knew what would happen, as they go down the open highway, yeah, the truck carrying Maroney is attacked, and there's a shootout. Luckily, Nightwing and Batgirl show up, and they boop boop ba-doop, and they get Maroney out of there. They go into this forest, like this is one of the forests, and where people just get lost, and they're never seen again. So luckily, because this is a place that exists, Nightwing's not only able to take these people out, he's able to go to one of many hiding places that Batman has set up, because of course he did. And so they tie up Maroney, they tranquilize him, keep him out for a while, and for some reason, this just leads to them deciding to bump uglies right upstairs. And it turns out that tranquilizer did not last all night, and he heard all of it. I'm like, oh no. Oh no, that face is brilliant. It's like, oh my god, you just kept going. You just kept going. I really hope they didn't say names. And as if to make things weird, Batgirl looks outside and says, oh no, what is that? Why is there a taxi cab out there? Even Batgirl points out, there aren't even any roads to go in here. And the taxi cab driver goes, hey, Nightwing, and this is where it gets weird and kind of the person driving is Rick Grayson, and he needs Dick Grayson to get into the car. And I'm like, no, No. So, let's talk about Rick Grayson. In Tom King's Batman run, Nightwing got shot in the head, and that led to a whole crisis of identity for Dick Grayson. Like, he shaved his head, he quit being Nightwing, burned up a bunch of his suits, decided to drive a taxi cab. There were like a bunch of other people trying to be Nightwing. It was really weird. To be fair, I didn't read most of that. I was like, it went on too long for me. I'm like, no. And, there were so many other books going on. I was like, you know what, if I have to drop anything, it'll be Nightwing. So, yeah, but on another side, I don't quite get the point of talking about having to take out Heartless and then bringing in Rick Grayson. Like, what? Like, maybe these two things will come together. But really, the whole point of this story wasn't even Boss Maroney or Mr. Maroney. It was Nightwing and Batgirl wanting to bone. Despite the fact, like, it's just so weird. So weird. Like, yeah, these two are a couple now. That's great. But couldn't we have, like, rearranged this a bit differently? Like, have it be that they bumped uglies before? Because honestly, them bumping uglies at any point in this story has nothing to do with the story going forward. Like, it's not because they were doing the deed that Rick Grayson showed up, all right, and they didn't notice. Which, Batman would definitely not approve of them bumping uglies for a multitude of reasons. But if that's the reason Rick Grayson was able to show up unnoticed, he'll never let him live it down. He'll never let him live it down. Overall, this book is it's not bad, it's just boring. Which seems to be Tom Taylor's thing now, It's either he writes really interesting stories or just flat out boring stories. Yeah, it's kind of sad. Next is Young Justice Dark Crisis on Infinite Earths, issue 5. I'm sorry, it's still just called Dark Crisis. By Megan Fitzmartin and Mickey Mixie's Pitlick's Menace. And honestly, I don't hate Fitzmartin's story here. I think it's a bit ham-fisted in terms of how she's going with this sort of deconstruction of the fans and the characters. So let's just sort of get into it. All right. This is Pitlick and the fake Cassie Sandsmark. So, like, hey, this is your world. This is where you can live. And he points out that, you guys were the original chosen ones. Like, this was your era. Like, I go back to this era, and this was really great. I get it. He represents the fans. But, hey, you were groomed to be the next in line to take over. And then what happened? Well, they brought in these replacements. Like, the powers that be brought in these new replacements, pushed you off to the side, and you didn't matter anymore. Some of you were killed off. Some of you were forgotten. Some of you were just removed from continuity. Like, no one knew where you were. All right? There's a good point to be had here. And this whole world is designed to be this place where you can continue the stories I really liked. I'm like, okay, I get it. I got it like 3 issues ago. All right? But we're still hammering this home. And we talk about, hey, this is the world that's replaced you. These people who aren't worthy of these replacements, these changes. And it's really a knock at current DC. You have I believe that's a non-binary Flash. There is Nubia, who is not a new character, but she's now the Queen of the Amazons. There's Yara Flor, who was just made Wonder Woman. Like, even her original book that came out for Future State doesn't really delve into that. Poison Ivy and Harley's relationship. Batwoman, I am Batman, Jace Fox. So I get what this all is. This is the diverse, non-binary, non-cis straight white story here, all right? This is the new non-cis straight white superhero world where you three don't belong. And even the addition of Bernard, who was just there to sort of invalidate Tim. Like, hey, this is your guy. Also, Bernard was not gay or bisexual in the original run where he was introduced. Like, the writer of the Robin comics, the person who created Bernard said, I never created him to be gay. So he pointed out, like, yeah, I don't have any, like, right to that character, but I did create him a certain way. And so Tim sees that, like, okay, well, there's nothing wrong with him. And even Bart points out, look, yeah, they're new characters, but they're still good characters. Like, in other words, this is more of a slight critique. Like, look, yeah, them coming in doesn't invalidate them. In reality, that is true. That is true. Yara Flor does not invalidate Cassie Sandsmark, all right? Tim Drake being in a bisexual relationship with Bernard doesn't invalidate him. John Kent doesn't invalidate Connor. Then none of this invalidates any of the new characters that came before. DC invalidates the characters that came before, because there was no reason why any of these other characters couldn't be alongside the other ones. Like Yara Flor and Cassie Sandsmark being introduced together, I think would have served them, would have done her a better service. All right. There was no reason to really make Poison Ivy was really only relegated for the most part to being Harley's girlfriend, which is really sad when you think of where she was before. Non-binary Flash, I haven't read Flash. No one's cared about Batwoman for years, and Alan Scott's back, and the first thing he really says is, "I'm gay." And Jace Fox, I'm not reading Batman. I'm not reading that Batman, so forget it. But there's a good point to be had here, and luckily during the fight, there's a perfect storm of a bat bomb batarang thing and arrowettes, because Bart vibrated and it was able to send out a signal that Cassie and Red Tornado was able to see. And yeah, so they're able to fight, not so much fight off, but escape. And everything for the most part seems fine. There's some talk about these orbs that they gotta hit, traps in the Speed Force. Arrowette points out that she's been kind of miserable without Young Justice, without her friends, but she never admits to that. So yeah, there's sort of like a two-way street with this conversation here, but it's never really handled properly, because it really is more of a critique of everything that came before. And even when they escape, it turns out they've never really escaped, because Mickey Mixes-Pitlick has followed them back. So the issue with this story is not really the subject matter, but how it's being discussed. I get it, yeah. It turns out the Young Justice era wasn't that great. There were some problematic elements, and Mixes-Pitlick represents a fan base that doesn't want to let go of these characters. And he's sort of a toxic representation of it, because, again, it's very easy to read that. That is because all the characters he points out are the, again, non-cis white heroes. Non-straight, non-straight, what's this? There's not a single cis white male there. Straight cis white male. I don't know why I couldn't say that, but that to me sort of undermines the issue. Well, yeah, there are people out there who just do have a problem with that. Like the people keep going like Superman can't be gay. I'm like, he can. Clark can't be gay. All right, or bisexual, which is not really where his character was ever led to. Minus Pink Kryptonite, which we don't talk about. But it was a fact that those three characters, including Cassie Sandsmark and Arrowette, were just gone. They were just removed. All right? Tim Drake had been relegated to obscurity. He was put as the only Robin on the Teen Titans for years, and that book could never get going. Connor Kent did not exist in New 52. All right? And Bart? No. Bart had only been seen, if I'm not mistaken, in the pages of a Teen Titans comic, based off the cartoon. I don't even think that was a good representation of Bart either. So yeah, it's a valid point to say DC has swept the characters under the rug and are expecting us to just totally accept these new characters. And a critique could be made that the real selling point of those characters is that they aren't straight, cis, white males. It's kind of it. To me, that's dull. I have no reason to read any character based on the idea they fit some ideological box. The story has to be good. And I will... Just going by the I Am Batman story in Future State, I'm not going to like John Ridley's Batman. Harley and Ivy, I barely tolerate. Like, I think Harley needs to go back to where she was before. Batwoman, love her, hate her. It's all depends on the writer for that one. Yara Flor, I tried, didn't work out. I barely read Flash as it is, so non-binary Flash meant nothing to me. And yeah, let's be honest, Connor Kent was forgotten about. All right, they tried to sweep him under the rug during the horribly planned New 52. These things are kind of non-negotiable. But speaking of John Ridley, let's talk about One Bad Day Penguin, because this story was actually really good. It's the best One Bad Day story that we've had. And to be fair, I think it was a bit hard on Two-Face, because I get the idea that, the idea that there's, Harvey and Two-Face is kind of a lie. Harvey and Two-Face are sort of the extremes of one actual person, all right? That is young Harvey Dent. All right. So Two-Face is just a personification of the worst traits. Harvey's personification of the best traits. In the middle is the actual person. All right. And that person is no saint. That person did kill his father. All right. So what is this story about here? Well, it's about some of Penguin's best stories, which is starting from the bottom. Now he's here. All right. So Penguin has lost his empire, not for the first time. New 52 had him lose it to a guy who called himself Emperor Penguin, as if to one up Oswald. And here, he's lost it all, and he's resolved to get it all back. And what's interesting is, he lost it to a guy called the Umbrella Man, who used to be Penguin's right-hand man. He would go around carrying the umbrella, and then he just sort of took everything from him. So, Oswald is resolved to build his life back together. And to be fair, no one believes he can do it. And it's kind of sad when you think about it that way. But what really works, in my mind, is the setup for this story. And honestly, it doesn't quite work as a One Bad Day story. But I think it also determines on how you view One Bad Day. And we're going to come back to that at the end. So the story Last Bullet does involve Oswald going and trying to get a hold of, again, the bullet that is needed to finish what he needs to do. So he buys a gun, and he goes through pretty much punishing or recruiting people like this guy here. Like this gentleman here sold him out for $25,000, which he wasted. So Oswald definitely doesn't respect him. Then he, with his last $10, he tries to get someone like, hey, look, I need a crew. She just takes his money and runs. He looks up and sees the bat plane. And we get to view exactly what's going on. So there's a power vacuum. So not even power, it's chaos. With the Umbrella Man in charge. Fentanyl's on the streets, sex trafficking, violence everywhere. So nothing has really gotten better. It's actually gotten worse because Penguin was a good cap on violent crime, which has often been discussed too. That he regulates crime. He's possibly the only legitimate crime boss in Gotham City. All right, with Falcone, it was chaos, and now it's more chaos without him. But he then goes to Lily, who points out that Penguin had been with her. She'd been with Penguin from the get-go, from the early days, and as soon as he got popular and it was a success, he pretty much brushed her off to the side. And she also doesn't believe that he can do it. Like, no, you can't get it back. The Umbrella Man's already defeated you. All right? He was your right-hand man. He went in, then he just beat the snot out of you and ran you out of Gotham City when he took, your support and everything. And we sort of get to look into Oswald's character. That, he's had a very hard childhood. He's always trying to rebrand himself into being something more. Lily says, screw it, let's go help out. They meet Frank, who really handled the henchman. Frank has also betrayed him to the Umbrella Man. But Lily shows off why she was pretty much the hands, because she got super hands, and she just beats them all down. And then we cut to Batman talking to Montoya, and she's like, you know what, this is crazy, we need to get a confession out of the Umbrella Man. And Batman's like, I'll do whatever's necessary to get it out. And she points out that's not how we do it in Gotham. And Batman's like, this isn't Gotham anymore. And it shows just how defeated Batman is here. Like, he can't get a hold of this, which might be the weak point of this story here, because all we're really told is Batman can't handle this. Like, it points out he hasn't had a decent night's sleep in months. Like, he stopped counting the days since he's had a decent sleep. But whatever. Then Oswald talks to Lily about, hey, there was a time when I was picked on as a kid, and I didn't have any friends. And one day for my birthday, a bunch of kids from school showed up. It was great. But it turns out they'd all been paid to hang out with me. My mom promised them $100 each. I'm like, oh. Yeah, it sucks. And sort of like the truth and the reality of it is, Penguin wants to be respected and feared, or at least he wants to be loved and respected. You can buy that. Or you can make them fear you. So it needs to be one of those. At least 2 out of 3 of those things he needs to function. And that's sort of in line with what led to Penguin sort of losing grip on everything and turning his back on people, whether intentional or not. It's sort of a tragic story, but it's also sort of in line with Penguin's life. Like, it's nothing new. Which I want to give the story points for. But since all the henchmen are dead, all that's left is this dude, Eli, who has some unresolved anger issues, but is for the most part a wuss. Oswald can point this out, and he goes him a little like, oh, that temper? We can use that. Come on, guys. We're going to go get $250,000, and we're going to fix it all there. So he gives him the gun, like, Eli, when I call your name, you just fire it, all right? That's all you got to do. He's like, I've never fired a gun. You'll do fine. You'll do fine. So Penguin goes to Eli, look, dude, you're going to get me the money I need, and I won't have you killed later. Johan is like, that's cute. The Umbrella Man's in charge now, and Eli, Penguin sort of goads Eli a bit more, and he says, leave me alone, Tommy Quinn. And he fires the 4 bullets left in that gun into the crowd of 6 guys. And he misses. He misses. So let's point out, he had about 4 bullets, 6 targets, and he missed all of them. Oswald, like, that's because he's crazy, all right? Look, I tried to rein him in, and he just fires, all right? And that's just the beginning of it. Like, he worked with the Joker. Joker got rid of him. Yeah, dude, you just want to hand me the money and be done with it, all right? And that works. That works. And I couldn't stop laughing at how Penguin just sort of bluffed his way out of there. So they're going to use the money to buy henchmen and guns. So there's only one person who relied on for that, and that is Frida, who used to work security in the Iceberg Lounge. Now, she points out that while Penguin was a good, it paid good, he sort of relegated her female figures to being like, objectified and harassed. And he's like, look, I ran a criminal empire. I didn't have an HR department. And that sort of implies that there was no real conversation between the two of them. But again, Oswald should be aware of this. It's his Iceberg Lounge. Either he wasn't informed or he didn't care. And so the $250,000 isn't going to work. He's like, well, what if I give you this burner phone? So if you need to call me, you can if you change your mind. There's a nice amount of desperation to Oswald. And I do love that. So... but because the Umbrella Man's found out that Penguin's making moves, he sends his man to go kill Frida's guys, Frida's crew. Why couldn't I say that? And that leads to Frida taking the last of her guys, saying, "Yeah, I'll help you," and they hug it out, which is really tender. The people that Oswald seems to work within his inner circle are the closest thing he seems to have to friends, and he's open and upfront about it when he needs to be. And I think he's also sort of reflected what's been going on, that if he'd listened more, this probably wouldn't have happened in the first place. Meanwhile, Batman and Montoya meet up and realize Penguin's making his move again, and this is going to lead to a gang war. It's going to lead to a huge... So Batman's like, I got to stop this. So this then leads to the Umbrella... So Penguin then calls the Umbrella Man and says, look, I'm coming to take back everything, and I will kill you. And Umbrella Man's like, who the hell do you think he is? I beat him within an inch of his life and sent him out of here. I ain't scared of him. So, you're like, get ready. I'll kill him this time. And we go there. Meanwhile, Batman and Oswald have a conversation. And there's an interesting play on the power dynamic here. And the past 2 issues try to do that too. The Riddler story had Riddler and Batman playing basketball. And Batman is sort of forced to stand there while Riddler plays hoops and breaks on, hey, I've been in control this whole time. All right, I know you're Batman. I know that Nightwing. I know you're Bruce Wayne. I know that Nightwing is Dick Grayson. I know about all of it. The only reason you exist is because I allow it. Harvey sort of revealed, like, hey, this whole Two-Face Harvey thing, not necessarily a joke, but you seem to think that Harvey's always the good guy, and that's not true. And you're going to keep letting me get away with it. These 2 things don't quite work. The first one because it was ridiculous, and the second one because it's kind of underdone. It doesn't really play up to the tragedy of Harvey Dent and Two-Face, or even the realization of Harvey Dent and Two-Face. It makes the same mistake that Civil War 2 made, where a character already points out, hey, this is Minority Report, when Stephanie goes like, hey, Harvey is Two-Face, Two-Face is Harvey, they're one and the same. This one here, Oswald points out that, I've really been the one in control of Gotham City up until now. I want to point out that, since I'm gone, you've had no control over the city. That's because I funded and supplied Joker and Riddler with the materials they needed, but never so much that you couldn't overcome them. All right? I regulated crime. I put a cap on it. I kept everything within acceptable means. On average, our crime is even less than Metropolis. Or it was, before I was dethroned and you had to actually compete with people who didn't care about regulating crime. There was no fentanyl on the streets. There was no sex trafficking. There was no child trafficking. That couldn't be resolved in just a few months. All right? But now, It's been months since you've had any form of sleep or control over the city. So really, you need me. And Batman has to sort of resolve to accept this. And this is pretty much what Batman's kind of known to an extent. Like, he lets Penguin operate as best he can because, well, it's a great place to keep crime in a central place like the Iceberg Lounge if he needs to go in there, but also because he knows that Penguin is about control over the city. He doesn't want things to get out of control like they were during the Falcone years. And he can apply enough pressure. So Batman goes, look, you've got this one night. It's your night, Oswald, but afterwards, you're mine. And yeah, it becomes this night. Is it the take back of the Penguin's empire? And then the meet up with the Umbrella Man and Oswald. Oswald tries to make this big, bold speech. Umbrella Man just slaps him and then just starts going, "Arr, arr, 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 arr." Actually, my hand's wrong. "Arr, arr, 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 arr." And Penguin just goes, "You're right, you're a man. I'm an animal." And he goes, "Rah." It looks like Empoleon. And then it stops being Pokemon and goes to Pokemon Adventures, rips his throat out, and he takes back his empire. And Batman shows up at the Iceberg Lounge and says, well, it's going to be business as usual now. And Oswald was with newfound confidence in himself and in what he's accomplished, as well as his sort of evaluation of his life. He goes, as my new friends will tell you, business as usual will never be the same again. And this is actually really cool that we've sort of reinvented Penguin for probably the third time. Granted, DC Rebirth has done next to nothing with Penguin, so this is technically his first real one outside of Death Metal, where a really cool scene he had at the end of it. But really, he's done nothing. It was the pages of Batman Detective Comics that showed Emperor Penguin losing his criminal empire, and he had the best Forever Evil story where he got it all, where he showed him getting his empire back. It was awesome. This one here is just really good. So Penguin's One Bad Day is the best one so far, and it's because but it also doesn't quite explain how the bad day works. So the One Bad Day, in terms of what we think is based off of Joker's One Bad Day, is that it just takes one bad day for you to go over the edge and just lose your mind. Alright? So Riddler's, Edward Nygma's, would have to be the story we told us, but there's no story in Two-Face to explain him. So there has to be the One Bad Day is the bad day when Batman has to realize that, hey, I don't quite understand Harvey or Two-Face as well as I thought I did. But does that mean we have to apply the same thing to the previous issue, meaning that the bad day is Batman's defeat and being forced to kill Riddler? Okay, but that story was really stupid. So what's here, it has to be the same thing with Two-Face. The bad day is Batman realizing he's never had that much control over Gotham City. He's only as effective as a criminal as Penguin allows him to be. And I think it's better with Penguin because Riddler works best when he's insane, when he just can't stand the fact that someone's smarter than him. That was the best thing about Hush, when he knows, I know you're Bruce Wayne, Batman. And Batman goes, you're not going to tell anybody because there's nothing special about knowing a riddle that everyone knows the answer to. And Batman walked out the room and said, oh, by the way, if you do tell, I'll tell Ra's al Ghul that you used his Lazarus pit. And yeah, but this idea of control over the city, over himself, over his life, over his narrative. These are things both Batman and Penguin duke it out for just about every day. Every battle they have on the streets, whether it be against a rival crime boss or the new costume vigilante, they're both trying to assert their control over the city, over their enemies, over themselves. The respect and fear angle. It's an interesting way to look at both Batman and Penguin that way. But again, the bad day aspect isn't Penguin's. There was a mention of Penguin's bad day with the birthday party, but that's kind of it. And this just makes Penguin more endearing. Riddler's story didn't really endear you to Riddler. Harvey's story is sort of lacking the tragedy that makes Harvey's story fun, and that's kind of it. Penguin's is just great. John Ridley, I think he nailed this one right out of the park. So yeah, that was good. That was good. And finally, our last story, one we've been waiting for a long time. Flashpoint Beyond, issue 6. It's done. So, let's get into this story. So, this picks up with Rip Hunter and Batman meeting up. Batman points out that Rip Hunter is possibly one of the most arrogant men he's ever met, and he knows Constantine, Guy Gardner. It's just, and it says a lot. It says a lot. He even knows Lex, and there's still no one more arrogant than Rip Hunter. And he's considered like the greatest Time Master, and all I keep hearing every time I hear Time Master is Rip Hunter. So I think Arthur Davrill, I think DC Legends of Tomorrow, and he's sort of, this is really the approach we have in a lot of time travel. Like, this isn't right, we have to change this. From Batman's point of view, who says you get to fix this? On whose authority? Because, as a Time Master, Time Lord, this same thing for Doctor Who, like, why do you get to determine this? What secret knowledge do you have that you just can't share with us? And in this case, what he wants is to destroy the snow globe that has the watch on it, because what that watch is the Flashpoint universe is trapped in that snow globe. And if what happens, that, what Joker wants, or Martha Wayne wants to do, is to get in there, travel back in time, and effectively undo and change what happened that night by them both dying in Crime Alley instead of Bruce Wayne, it will affect hypertime. Like, that thing will break. And that it will affect all of time and space. Like, in other words, all of time and space is at risk. Hypertime is at risk. And I'm sorry, the last issue did sort of like a lame job of explaining it, or at least a boring job. Rick's trying to explain the different crisis events, and Rip is here like, look, we have to destroy it, and we have to let history go the way it's supposed to. In other words, Thomas Wayne has to die. All right? And Batman trapped everything in there, in the snow globe with the watch, to keep him alive, to keep that Flashpoint universe alive. So as long as that Flashpoint universe is alive, it's always a constant threat, especially if they leave. So Martha puts out the idea that, hey, let's talk about what the Flashpoint universe is, and that we can undo this, we can change it, we can save our son, we can do one last great thing, and for a moment it looks like Thomas is going to do it. And Gilda's all set for it too, because she's not supposed to be Two-Face. Right, she's still going to die, but she won't be this mad woman. And again, there's an explanation exactly what the Flashpoint universe is while everything else is going on. That Barry Allen's body is vibrating, even though it shouldn't. That there's a Kryptonian invasion coming to Earth. That, the war against the Atlanteans and the Amazons is still going on, as the government's declaring a war on metahumans and planning to kill the Atlanteans and Amazons. So it's crazy. But she points out that this is all because of Barry Allen's sorrow over the loss of his mother. And that's what the Flashpoint universe is. It's all this sorrow and despair coming together. And they have to undo that. So I think the best way to undo that is to be the ones to die instead of Bruce, and that'll fix everything. Presumably, or at the very least, keep their son alive. So, while it looks like Thomas is going to do it, Dexter asks, like, if you do that, what happens to him? And that's an interesting question. Effectively, what happens, he just wouldn't exist. Alright? Because, Harvey and Gilda didn't have kids. So, there's that. Rip is getting ready to destroy the snow globe, but nah, it's not going to happen, primarily because what leads to this going on is them getting in the time capsule. And Thomas goes like, we can't do this. Like, he won't let Dexter die, even though he won't so much die as he'll just never exist, which is kind of the same thing. The idea is he just won't feel it. So he tells Martha that, we can't do this. Like, I will not let a child die to save my own. And so that kind of is all Martha needs to hear as she kills Gilda, which I think sort of revealing that there is still a good person inside Martha Wayne. That, she may be broken from the events of seeing her son murdered and she's become a homicidal maniac. There's still the idea that deep inside she's just a mother grieving the loss of her son. And ultimately, she still will not let a child die to save her own. So, the whole thing happens. There's some explosions. And really what happens is this allows the Flashpoint universe to stabilize. Because by them not going, that entire thing just now has its own set direction, its own continuity. Totally safe and stable within the snow globe. And Rip is like, how? And Bruce just goes, you don't know Thomas Wayne. And he points out the letter that he got from the Flashpoint universe doing the story of Flashpoint. And it really talks about, hey, how Thomas was going to become a better man. He found hope in knowing that Bruce was out there in another universe, that he helped Barry Allen. Effectively, that he's ultimately a good man who was never going to do that. And so now we skip to the end of this all, and this whole sort of Kryptonian invasion and whatnot. Dexter is the new Robin, and it's Thomas calls it a family name, and Martha is in a cell in the Batcave with a bed, a desk, and lots of books, and she's like, they look good. And like, his shoe's untied, Thomas ties his shoe. And it's sort of cute and sad at the same time. This is definitely a reference. I believe it was Paul Dini who said that ultimately what Batman would do is lock Joker in a cage in the Batcave and just, leave him there. Give him food and whatnot. Like, he wouldn't let him die, but he'd never get out. And that would just sort of be the story. The most logical conclusion for Batman's story is to lock Joker in the Batcave. But whatever, we go in, and Thomas and Dexter go in as Batman and Robin to kill Kryptonians. And I'm thinking, they're going to die. This ain't the dynamic duo. No. But anyway, then we cut to Cleopatra as the time capsules are all set, and she is obsessed with the work of Ozymandias and pretty much the events of Doomsday Clock. So it almost looks like Jeff Johns has another story he wants to tell involving this whole continuity, the events of Doomsday Clock, Beyond Flashpoint, DC Rebirth, and the Three Jokers. It's all going to come together in one more story that will probably come out in the year 2030. So, yeah, that's the end of Flashpoint Beyond. And it was alright. I felt like I missed the point where to mention that Bruce trapped the Flashpoint universe in a snow globe and was using, like, the watch to sort of, reinforce it or something. Because that to me felt like a big deal. Like, the whole reveal that, hey, Martha Wayne and that Martha's family's always been crazy, to me didn't really seem to matter, other than the fact that by knowing it affected the Flashpoint universe. So that didn't make any sense. It's weird when they say, like, this timeline is a perversion, like, you guys have made things worse. Well, hold on, why didn't you guys fix it to begin with? Like, I don't quite understand that. Like, this whole point of these people were supposed to monitor time. Like, the Time Lords are all but wiped out, continuity-wise. Or at least choosing not to intervene, but the Celestial Intervention Agency would have been on point for this whole thing. There were no Time Masters throughout any of Flashpoint, so I don't quite get why they all of a sudden think that they get to decide these things. Alright, where were they when Booster Gold almost doomed everything in Action Comics? I don't quite get it. The story of Thomas is alright. I think what most people were looking forward to in Flashpoint Beyond was seeing more of the Flashpoint universe than we got. Yeah, it was nice to see Aquaman and Wonder Woman in that story again. It was nice to see Superman and a multitude of other characters, but I think what people really want to see was a more functioning, straightforward story where Thomas was just one part of a much bigger story. In reality, he is the story. Like, everything is revolving around him and what he wants to do. No story in here moves without his say-so for the most part. Like, if he's not there, the story doesn't go anywhere. It's just news clips about how pretty much the Flashpoint universe is collapsing in on itself through its own continuity. But now it seems like everything's going to be fine. So it's kind of weird. I do expect that we'll see another story here. Another story here using Gary Frank's art. So which means whatever book comes out will be horribly delayed. What was it Jason Fabok? One of those two. I'm sorry. I think it's Gary Frank. But overall, this was still fun. So, yeah, it feels like Johns is trying to end his DC Rebirth story. Hopefully he'll end it and it won't affect the JSA book he's putting out. But anyway, we're sort of rambling for time here. If you are new to the Bucket thing, feel free to like, comment, share, subscribe, check out some other videos. What did you guys think? I think Flashpoint Beyond was all right. The Penguin story was just great. Still not reading your Batman. Tom Taylor once again proves to tell a boring Nightwing story, and Megan Fitzmartin once again furthers the discussion about how nostalgia can be toxic. She really wants to use Superboy Prime. I think she does. Anyway, I'll catch you all later. This is about Think Tank signing off. Thanks for watching. As always, may your fandom serve you well.